Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of One Great Question. And my guest today is really surprising because the sheer volume of what he's done and continues to do makes me tired just reading them. Never mind actually thinking, how would you do it? How would you come up with the questions to create it? And so, our guest today is Sam Prim, who is an incredible real estate educator, mind, business leader out of the Midwest. And he's got, at this point, I think like 3.5 million followers online. They've done over 2,000 real estate deals and something like 50 million, I think, in kind of transaction and revenue. But more than that, Sam's probably one of the most fun dudes I've ever met. So a lot of times you may not, intersection of real estate and super fun. But the first time I hung with Sam in a professional environment, he was busy like getting ready for a big important webinar, and his first question was, "Hey, Carl, what's your favorite bourbon in the office? Because we're gonna, make sure everybody's having a good time." And so I want to introduce everybody to Sam Prim.
I appreciate that. Was a good intro. Excited to chop it up with you. And yeah, why wouldn't you have a good time, right? Might as well.
Yeah,
If you can do fun, you can accomplish a lot and have a good time at the same time.
100%. It's very interesting you talk about that because one of the first things I will tell executives or companies when I meet with them is I'll ask, how much fun are you having on a scale of 1 to 10? And it's very strange because I'll do this everything from a SaaS company all the way to places like Lululemon. And these are grown adults going, hold on, aren't we paying this consultant a lot of money? Why is he asking us how much fun we're having? And in this idea, it's, the research shows you are so much more productive. You're so much more likely to attract great talent and build a really good culture if there's a high fun factor. I mean, this is literally why things like Glassdoor reviews were created, because they're going, hey, people are being productive, but they hate it. And so they're being less productive. And so the metric then becomes we say, if you're not having a good time, you're probably doing something wrong. And Sam, when I came across you, I was like, man, this guy's doing a lot of stuff right. He's having a good time. He's doing really good work. He's helping a ton of people. So the question I'd love to start off with you first is, let's go way back. And so if we were to get to have a chat, as you said, chop it up with 8-year-old Sam, looking at current day Sam, what would the 8-year-old version of you be excited or like wowed by that the current version of you is getting to do? And it doesn't have to do with the money or the stuff, but what thing would be like, oh my gosh, we get to do this, or you did that? What would they be surprised by?
I think 8-year-old me would be surprised and delighted in the fact that I go to work every day with my friends. Right. I don't think anybody, or not anybody, but not that many people get to say that. Maybe you become friends with the people you work with, and maybe you go to happy hour, and maybe you hang out with them on weekends or whatever. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm working with my like elementary school, middle school, high school, and college friends. We have 55 team members right now. And I would say 15 of them are people that I've known for years and years before they came to work with my business partner, Lucas, and I. Andrew, one of our dispositions rep for our flipping company, I met him in kindergarten and had been riding my bike to his house and went to middle school and high school and college with him. I mean, Lucas, my business partner, we've been best friends for 25 years. We got in bar fights in college together. We fought each other a little bit. We owned like a painting business where we paint in the summers for houses for beer money. Went through all of those things together. Right. So I think the coolest thing would be like, you actually get to work with your friends. Cause, my dad was an engineer, worked for Boeing, a big company, and, kind of kept to himself and don't really see the work friends. It's work and family is separate, but we have melded work, family, and friends together. I think that'd be the thing. I'd be like, whoa, you get to work with your best friends every day. That's cool.
That's amazing. So I would imagine people hearing that, even somebody who might be wired to be in entrepreneurship, or other leaders who are maybe have had a friend come to them and said, hey, could I come and work for you? And they're like, I've heard for forever, don't mix business and pleasure, personal and professional life. What question would you say you and Lucas asked each other to make sure that the friendship stayed intact and wasn't damaged by the business?
Yeah, that's a good question because we're a lot of friends working here, and it can go south. And we've had a couple really good friends that we've had to either shift to a different role or just kind of both move on, the right way. So I think the biggest thing was we would always said the friendship would come first. I remember specifically Lucas and I had dinner at it was like an Applebee's type place, like a little sports bar. Before we got started, we were setting our goals of we want to buy 10 rental properties in 10 years, so one rental a year, and that was kind of our goals. And then we bought a few, and then we had dinner again, and we're like, we feel like we're doing some pretty cool things, and we're going to go some cool places, and we want to build this. Do we bring our friends and family and people we love along with us? Or do we keep it separate like everybody tells you to do? And we decided, obviously, to do the former and take everybody along with us. And I think the biggest thing is just setting the expectations. And I look at it as the right person. Not all of our friends work for us. The right person, the right friend, the right role with the right expectations can be a beautiful thing, because our friends will run through a wall with us, right? We've all been out doing things together for a long time, and I can teach the skills. So if the culture is already there, then I feel like the rest we can teach and train, and maybe even, fortunately right now, we're able to kind of move people roles within the kind of subsets of our companies to get the right fit where everybody's happy. So I think that's the biggest thing for us, is having those clear expectations, and then just communicating throughout the process of what's working, what's not working, and trying to get the right people in. Because I can't tell you how many people you hire and great interview, great references, seems like a culture fit, and 2 months in, you're like, what happened, right? You never know. It's always, you can do as much pre-work as you can, but it's always kind of a crapshoot. So we know that it's not going to be that when we hire the people that we've been around. We might have to fix the role, and maybe the role didn't work out, but we know the culture's there.
Yeah, that's so good. I was had the fortune of being in the room a little while ago with a billionaire who got to make $1 billion by selling chicken, and so this is the Chick-fil-A Corporation, and Dan was talking to us about this idea that we're always hiring for three things in this order. It's capacity. Can you do the job? And like you said, that's kind of the easiest thing. I can teach you how to flip a house. I can teach you how to, run a really great Chick-fil-A. The next thing is, and it's more important than capacity, is chemistry. Do you want to operate at the same speed that we do? Does this feel fun? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? That's the chemistry thing. Does it make sense? And I think the thing you've kind of, relationally hacked, which might be a cheat code for other people to learn from, is you've asked this question: is this friend of mine a person of deep character? Like, I've seen them since kindergarten or middle school or high school or through college, and nobody's perfect, but do I trust them to do the hard thing when nobody's looking? I have 10 years of experience now with this person to know that, 99 out of 100 times they're going to do the right thing. And the time they don't do the right thing, they're going to bring it to me and be like, hey, help me get out of this mess. I shouldn't have done this. Let's course correct. And so I think that's amazing that you found a place where you can have people who, like you said, that character is established. And then the second thing, I don't know if our listeners quote this, so I want to highlight it, is it is making expectations move from implicit, implied, secret, quiet, like, oh, I get this, they get this, surely. And it's like, no, nobody ever said it. Moving it from implicit to explicit. Like, we said the thing out loud. Hey, what do we want from our first 10 flips a year? Then, okay, how different is that from having 55 teammates and running something that's doing, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars eventually? And so those expectations change. And so my question for you would be, and I've gotten to see this one firsthand in your office with your staff and at how many conversations happen. When and how are you and Lucas still having those conversations today to kind of check in and reset the expectation? Because in my work, we talk about expectations are experiments. They're constantly shifting. I mean, how long have you guys been married now? Not you and Lucas, you and your wife.
Me and my wife have been married since 2012, so going on 14 years.
Amazing. So congrats. But a lot changes in 14 years, right? So we know with our spouses, with our kids, with our friends, with our colleagues, we need to reset the expectations all the time because it's an experiment. Things are shifting underneath the ground of that expectation. So what has been your cadence, either personally with Lucas or with your team or in the culture, to reset those expectations, to make sure you're asking new questions?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we have set up now is we have truly two levels of management. We have our operators that operate the multiple businesses that we own, and then we have like mid-level managers now that those people report to. So I think the biggest thing is Lucas and I still we host a monthly, all team meeting where we, talk to the people and get to know everybody. But there are legitimately people, and 55 team members is not a ginormous company, right? But it's
Big.
coming from where it came from. It's pretty cool. But there's some people that I don't even interview or know until they're hired because they're not in kind of my subset of what I focus on. So the biggest thing that we do is we have a meeting every Monday with the leaders of our company and our CFO and our HR manager, and we kind of go over everything, quick metrics of each company. We kind of mastermind and talk through issues and those types of things. But we can set the clear message there that then can be cascaded down to the mid-level managers, to everybody in the company. So aside from our once a month time where we're in front of everybody, we're not able to have that intimate relationship with everybody like we did when there was 5 people there or 10 people there or 20 people there. So as we grow, it's very important for us to get the right leaders in place and to set the expectation with them, any shifts, any things that are needed, anything we want to focus on, and make sure that's clearly articulated to them, and they have the right systems, processes, and ability to clearly articulate that kind of down the line.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And so for you, how do you feel like the cadence has changed either when things are really busy and good, or maybe the market shifts and you have to adjust your guys' reaction to it? What is kind of the rhythm of those meetings and the questions that maybe you guys are asking of each other at that upper leadership space?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making sure that the teams are operating with, like the word you use, the right chemistry, kind of having the right expectations, the right sense of urgency, and just talking through those and getting updates on the team and what's happening there. And Lucas and I meet about once a week. Sometimes we skip that meeting, but let's say 2 to 3 times a month where Lucas and I just meet and kind of talk about our subsets of the business, because we have 4 different companies that
Yeah.
we oversee and operate and own, and we've kind of divided and conquered. I haven't been to a education, or I haven't been to a property management company meeting in probably 2 years. So I don't know anything except the top line numbers I get every Monday morning in our meeting. And he probably has been to 3 education company meetings in the past, couple of years. So we truly do divide and conquer. And that just comes from the trust within Lucas and I that we don't both need to be in the same room. We're wasting time. Actually, it's nice to have the other person's opinion on things. And if we're both there, maybe every decision's a little bit more clear, but we can make way more decisions if we're not both in the same room, because we can both kind of separate. So I think that, in a roundabout way, not exactly answering your question, I think is a big part of it. And just having the understanding that, we're bringing in the right people and we're bringing in the right culture. And if things go south, which they have, we've had really bad months in some of our companies where, might not be a big number. A lot of people, but we lose 80 grand this month in one of the companies. That's a lot of money. So that's when we usually will come together, or I'll hop in, or we'll get the leaders and Lucas and I in a meeting and try to really dissect what the problem is and come up with a clear solution with, cadences. And that's when we bring our brains together, which is right, wrong, or indifferent. But that's usually when our brains come together, when things are going south, or maybe a little late after they've gone south. So that's really when we're together.
But I think you're highlighting for all of us, and who are leaders or in positions of management, or who are just interested in the subject in general. It's going, what's the question worth asking? And the first one you highlighted was, do I need to be in this meeting? And again, there are companies who waste a metric ton of really high end capital in terms of people capital, talent. And I like to break everything down to kind of like an hourly rate. So if you're paying somebody, and this is always a fun question, if you're paying somebody $100,000 a year, do you know what their hourly rate is?
I do not know.
So it's just half. So I'm not a good math person. So that makes life really simple, but it breaks down to basically that's a $50 an hour person. And so the quick question then becomes, if, hypothetically you and Lucas are, hoping to make, I don't know, $500,000 a year. Well, that's $250 an hour for you to be in the meeting. And you're like, would I have paid somebody else $250 for that hour to be in this meeting if they don't touch anything? And you're like, no, that'd be an incredible waste of time. So the question then becomes, am I valuable to this meeting and its outcome? And so I think it's incredibly encouraging and helpful to see leaders asking that question, going, I don't have to be in this meeting just because I'm supposed to be. Because that's the other problem, right? It's like, well, I own the company. Shouldn't I be in every meeting? Shouldn't I know everything that's going on? No, we should create infrastructure that reports back to me. And then when there is a need, like a downturn of an 80K month, I can jump in and be helpful. Because all of a sudden in my mind now I'm going, oh, that's somebody's year salary that we just lost in a month. Okay, I need to jump in and be helpful to go and get that revenue back. So that's I wouldn't expect anything less. Again, having been in the office and seeing you guys operate and being hands in. And one of the things I would say, if you haven't checked out Sam, along with 3.5 million other people on social, is you can tell that there's a real sense of community and connectivity and belief in the work that you guys are doing. I think all of those things are hyper important in order to attract your friends, not just say, well, I like Sam, so I'll work for him. I don't really know or care about real estate. Yeah, but we're not just doing real estate. We're helping people find new homes. We're helping people find their, kind of financial future inside a new education platform, learning a new trade and a skill. And so I think all of those things are incredible. I will ask, for somebody coming new to you, so it's one of the millions of people, not one of the millions of people yet who found you on the internet and follow you, consistently. They might pop up on your YouTube or your TikTok or your Instagram and see, hundreds of thousands and then millions of views and go, okay, this is what success looks like. I want that. How do I learn how to post and become famous and, or relevant in my niche? And I think a lot of times in our culture, nobody really counts the cost of, there's so many times that you're, having to do this in the dark where nobody's watching and you're doing the hard work and all that stuff. So the question that I would have around this, kind of like, our second question, our podcast, is always, when it comes to success, what is something, a cost that may have surprised you? Like if you look back at the last now, however many years you've been doing this thing inside real estate, what's something that it cost you that may have surprised you? And if you got to choose from today with what you know, would you pay that price again?
Yeah, I think a big cost of what has, I think, led to whatever level of success I've had is I don't have as much time as I would think for things outside of my work, my businesses, and my family. I don't golf as much as I'd like to. I don't go on vacation as much as I'd like to. I've kind of set aside that fun bucket. I kind of look at it as you got your fun bucket, your work bucket, and your family bucket. And I've
Mm.
sacrificed to a certain degree the fun bucket. I always say, I only golfed 15 times this year, and then the next year it's, oh, I golfed 12 times, and then last year I golfed twice. So it's one of those things where those things tend to get sacrificed. But I have created, at least in my mind, maybe not in reality, the fact that I get more joy out of growing my businesses and going to work with my friends and family. And then I get more joy out of spending with my family than I would out of shooting a 65 on the golf course. Not that
Yeah,
I could ever do that, but I've created
65,
joy.
165 for Carl.
100, yeah, that might be on 9 holes. So yeah, I've been able to get enough joy, or at least I've told myself that, out of the two things. I can't be a good husband and father, a good business owner, and have a ton of free time, in my opinion, to act and perform at the level that I want. So I've sacrificed that side, but it's not really a sacrifice because I get, I believe, more joy out of the two buckets I focus on than I would out of the third bucket anyway. So I would definitely relive that. And just to kind of quickly touch on your point of all the work that's done in the dark and all of those things, I looking back, I don't know if I would have realized how much it has taken to get that many followers and that much reach, because I can't tell you how many times I would go live in front of 3 people for an hour, and before people, all going live with me, and then for a month, and there'd be 8, and then it'd be 12, and just consistently, continually doing it and posting videos that get 80 views, and the next one gets 120, then the next one gets 60. So just that lack of traction that happens, especially specifically when we're talking about that social media growth and trying to create a brand, it's wild looking back at how much time I spent on my phone and how much content and videos I created that didn't get reach in order to get the reach that was needed. So kind of a two-parter, like kind of piggyback on, but yeah, that was pretty wild as well.
Yeah. And so, and you don't have to answer this, but I would love to know, based on now looking back and going, I did have to spend this much time and I did have to do this. I think it's different with I'm spending time with Lucas and my friends at the company, because that at least feels like I'm with somebody. But a little bit with the social media. It's like, man, I'm just grinding kind of in the lab by myself, kind of head down. Do you think you would pay that price again if somebody said, "Hey, go back, I don't know, 10 years and it'll work out." Like you have the knowledge that it'll work out, but it's not going to feel good. You're going to have to do this thing. Would you go and pay that bill again?
If you asked me that 2 years ago, I probably would have said yes. If you asked me that now, probably no, just because the social media, as we alluded to before we kind of hopped on and started chatting and recorded, social media and has really aided my business from like 2021 to 2023, 24 timeframe. It really just carried the bacon in that. And now it's just not near as important. I'm getting similar views. I'm getting similar followings, and everything's, if you just look at the metrics on social media, pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not leading to as much revenue. It's not leading to as much because of multiple factors: the business
Mm-hmm.
environment, the real estate environment, and just the general economy. So looking back, for a couple of years, it would have been worth it. But now I'm like, I could have spent a lot of that time maybe developing better systems and processes to help other businesses or attract people. Just a lot of people in my space just attract people through ads, and they have really good funnels and systems and are able to monetize it that way. I leaned on social media so hard, I never had to really do ads, and the ads I didn't perform, but it didn't matter because we
Mm-hmm.
were doing so well organically and had that like, know, and trust from people that we were able to be very, very profitable and have high margins because we didn't have to spend that time. So to answer your question, as a depends when you're asking me that right now, I maybe would reconsider. But a couple years ago, that was carrying everything. So then it was worth it. But I'm just going to keep doing it now. I feel like I'm too far over. I'm too far out on the plank. I have to just keep walking
Yeah.
until we figure it out. I can't stop now.
Yeah. Well, and to your point earlier, before we jumped on the pod, it was this idea of these things are so cyclical that I think the future for all people who are creating a business is having some sort of brand identity, some personal brand identity. And so for people just to continue to, using your phrase, know, like, and trust you, it's going, okay, well, there will be up and down turns in real estate, but through thread of all that is I know, like, and trust Sam. So if he's the person to kind of help guide me through this, then, it still seems like, at least to me, a super wise investment. I am interested from your perspective, having been neck deep and sometimes drowning in the world of social media to make your business run. I see a massive difference between gurus and guides. And I think in your space, this is super prevalent, right? Because I mean, you will see people trying to sell a course and then they're like, look at me, I'm amazing. And then you're like, well, it feels a little bit like you're going to drop a 12-point plan and then just disappear and then be like, if I fail, well, that's on me. And then I feel like yours, at least to me, the sense of the brand and who I know you to be as a person feels a little bit more like a guide. Do you see a difference in that for you personally?
Yeah, 100%. The part of the reason I got into the space was the guru vibe of, I'm in front of a rented Lamborghini creating a video, or I'm just rented out or just went to look at a private jet and took some pictures around it, and those types of vibes of, hey, look how flashy I am. Now give me your money, and here's the, like, to use your words, a 12-step course. So my whole brand is built around being the opposite of that. It's I've never done the guru guide, but that makes sense. It's more of, I'm just a normal dude who actually wants to help you. I realize the more that I help you, the more you will win and the more money I can eventually make, as opposed to just trying to sell right off the bat. I had a conversation a couple years ago with a billionaire. I should probably know his name. He started Priceline.com, but that gentleman,
Yeah.
and he just said that money is attracted to people that provide solutions and genuinely want to help people. Of course, there's evil billionaires out there that made their money by stabbing other people in the back and getting ahead. But in general, a large majority of wealthy people got there by being a good person and providing a solution. And he said most of the billionaires he knows are not special because they're billionaires. They're billionaires because they're special. So I think that has always led true to me, that I just really want to help people. And then knowing that I'm not being a selfless, saint here, I will end up making more money down the line, as opposed to trying to start with the money. So to kind of roundabout question, answer your question, yes, 100%. I do not want to be a guru. I hate to be kind of put in that space, especially recently with just how many people there are in the space, because it's very easy to make an Instagram or a TikTok and talk about the one good deal you did and try to get people to pay you to replicate a system that's probably not even replicatable.
Mm. Yeah, this is also one of the things that I've loved about being around your brand and the company is you guys are pretty honest about spaces where it falls apart and it fails. And I think again, this is the difference between a guide and a guru. When I think of a guru, I almost think of kind of like Eastern mysticism, where this is the guy who's gone up on a mountain and he's sat for 100 days and he's transcended. And you're like, I got a wife and kids, man. I got to go to work. I don't know that I can go up on the mountain and transcend. He's like, well, then you'll never be good enough. That's the guru, right? There's big distance. Whereas the guide is going, hey, we're going to go on this walk together. I've walked this path 100 times. I know over there the ground's a little bit soft, so hang to the right. And eventually, what the guide is going to do is go like maybe 50 feet in front of me and be like, hey, you can just see me. We're together, but I'm leading you in the direction that you want to go. Hey, you need me to drop back? I'll be with you in the mess. You fell down. Let me, kind of splint your ankle and pick you back. So there's this sense of community and continuity. And the other thing is, I think guides are very vulnerable about like, oh, I know this because I fell off that part of the path before. So that's why I know you need to like stick to the right because that part is the footing there is unsure. Is there a place maybe in the last 2 or 3 years where you find yourself sharing with your community, with the people that you're guiding, of hey, let me be really vulnerable, this is where it didn't work and this is where we pivoted, and what did that do for your audience or your team or the people right next to you who you're like, hey, this will affect me personally because i I depend on this revenue as well. And so how do you navigate being vulnerable and changing and asking new questions when things don't work?
Yeah, no, great question. I think the biggest thing that I do is just try to be vulnerable. I like the question I ask it every once in a while to someone: is being vulnerable a strength or a weakness? And you get your macho men that say it's a weakness, and I think most people understand that it's a strength if you do things the right way. And we definitely try to be that way. The number one feedback I get from people that end up being a part of the community or whatever, it's not you're the most handsome guy online, or it's not you're the most eloquent, because I definitely mumble and slur and talk too quickly. It's just you're the most authentic one is usually what we
You
get.
sure it's not the shoe game? I think
It
the
might be it might be
shoe
the
game.
shoe game. We don't always show the shoe game. We got Jordan. LeBron's better than Jordan, but Jordan's shoes are better. We'll leave that one alone. But anyways, the Jordan shoes, maybe it's that. But
Yeah.
I mean, and we can even talk about it here. Yeah, I like to just tell people how it really is, because I really bought 50 million in real estate using none of my own money. But guess what really happened as well? The the last few years we bought a lot of really bad deals, and we bought a little motel in Branson, Missouri, that loses $15,000 a month because we over rehabbed it and we're not getting the occupancy we thought we were going to get because it's like an Airbnb hotel. So we have to go through those things, and I feel like that's normal in business. You're not going to have a straight upwards trajectory. So now I own 50 million in real estate. But if you talk to me again, if we do another podcast in a year or two, guess what? It's probably going to be a lot less than that, because we're going to be selling quite a bit to write off, to get out of some bad deals and to just stabilize and get to a little bit more stable place. Because when you scale at the level that we did, at least how we did it, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. And as you start to have real businesses and a real financial department and a CFO, and you dig into the numbers, like, wow, this is a really, really bad deal. And these aren't little deals. These are $5, $6, $7 million apartment complexes and things like that. So we're going to be worked really hard to own 50 million in real estate with a decent amount of debt. Now we're in a year, we'll probably own about 20 million in real estate, but have about 5 million in debt and actually be positively cash flowing net at the end of every day and have a little breathing room. So the scale that we've grown has not come with a lot of mistakes and a lot of unwinding that we need to do. And that's, I think, just part of the journey, and part of being a guide or a leader is just being vulnerable to people and letting them know that as they are going through the journey, so they can relate to it, because they're going to do the same thing, hopefully
Mhm.
with a few less zeros and maybe a few less high ankle sprains. Maybe we'll get them to do a stub toe, but they're going to still have those issues.
Yeah. No, that's so valuable. We talk about in our work with leaders, there's kind of a few options in terms of leadership when there are L's, when something hurts and you're kind of, cut in half real bad, according to John C. Riley's movie, Walk the Line or whatever it was. Um, and when we fail as a leaders or we lose something, what we have is leaders who will then lead from an open wound. And you can see this, like they get bitter, they're resentful, they're upset, somebody's done them wrong because nobody's taken the time to like, hey, how do we work on this thing? And the other side of that is leaders who go, nothing wrong has ever happened to me. Don't talk to me. Like, we'll have a wall between you and me and just go do your job. And I think the third way, and the most attractive way, and it sounds like this is what you and Lucas have done, and I've seen it as well in person with both of you guys and the team, is I think great leaders lead from scars. And it's like, this thing hurt, and we've got it sewn up, or we're in the middle of sewing it up, and you will see the scar, and it's not going to go away. But we're going to do that thing together, and we're going to figure it out together. Like, okay, we were riding our bike, we fell off, and we cut ourselves. Now we have to fix that thing. And so this idea, like you said, the Brene Brown kind of there's strength in the vulnerability. I think on one side you have the social media world where I find a lot of leaders now will just throw up on social media and be like, everything's terrible, it's all bad, and it's like, this is me being vulnerable. I was like, no, that's you looking for pity. And then on the other side, like you said, there's this macho, kind of alpha male wolf kind of idea, toxic leadership of like, nothing's ever wrong, suck it up, buttercup, run on broken ankles. It just is what it is. And I think there's this third way where we go, that really sucked. And this hurt really bad. And there's a way forward. And both of those things can live in the same place. And also go like, this is really what life is. It's kind of that messy middle of those two extremes. And how do we create that third way? And so how have you found your staff and your team have responded, say in the last 12 months of going, okay, cool. Like, we kind of had a Starbucks moment. Maybe we grew too fast, too big, too fast. And now for everybody's protection, we're going to like adapt and adopt a new philosophy over the next 12 months. How do you find your team are responding to that way of thinking?
They've been very responsive to it, and I think that has to go with that chemistry, that culture, and the fact that they're our friends and people we've known for a lot of years. They're in it for the long haul. This isn't a stepping stone job for them. They know that they can come to work every day and work hard, and maybe we have to shift a role or maybe we have to pivot something, but we're going to do it together. We've had multiple people that we've had to ask to, hey, we need to shift your role. You love what you're doing now, but that's not what we need. We need this right now. And it's been taken with pretty good open arms and pretty good responsibility on their part. So we definitely had to do that. We've had to pivot. We've had to have those conversations. And for the most part, they go very smoothly. And I don't know, I guess, because I don't have experience with the other side of it, but I would think it probably goes smoother than somebody you just hired 6 months ago from Indeed that you don't even know their family's name or something along those lines. So we tend to get that buy-in, that loyalty when shifts need to be made, and I think that's a hidden or not so hidden advantage of the culture and the fact that we brought our people with us.
Yeah. And I think, Sam, you're helping us catch a lesson here, whether it's you're running a company and you might be thinking right now, well, I don't have 10 friends that I can go hire. So how do I do that? Or you might not own a company at all and you're listening to this going, well, how does that help me in my personal life? I think the secret of what you're talking about is this idea that ambiguity creates anxiety and clarity creates connection. And in your world, you are clarifying consistently, hey, these things that may or may not be out of in our control are shifting. So we'd like to have a conversation and say, what would it look like if you shift over here? So there's a lot of clarity around something that to most people would feel unclear or ambiguous, which is the market, things were out of control. And a lot of leaders will go, well, just don't talk about it and we'll figure it out. And all you're doing is turning up the volume of everybody's anxiety, as opposed to, hey, this is what's happening and this is what we think is a path forward. Are you up for that? Can we change that? Can we adjust that? How do we feel about that? So whether that's in business or personally, when we're going, hey, I know we were kind of looking at a vacation at the end of the year, and then as opposed to waiting and waiting and waiting until November and be like, we just don't have money for that. What does it look like to talk about that in March and go like, hey, I think there might be something happening over here. I don't know if we have access to as many funds. What does it look like to adjust that expectation now in March as opposed to waiting for November? And oh, by the way, I'm stressed out for the next 6 months. You don't know why. And it's creating other fights that are about other things because I'm trying to protect you. I don't want you to know how bad it is, or I want to hold this information because I'll just figure it out on my own. And again, it comes back to this idea that we've heard a lot in our culture of leaders being lone wolves. Like, oh, I'll just figure it out. I'm an alpha, which, by the way, is really funny because a lone wolf, a wolf is a pack animal. And somebody who's a lone wolf, that's a rabid animal that the rest of the pack doesn't trust. And so you're like, that's not a healthy thing to be looking for. So how do we find vulnerability and communicate that? And I think this is what you're highlighting to us is as quickly as you can communicate things that are adjusting that are out of your control, and bring as much clarity as you can that goes, we don't know how this is going to turn out, but we know we need to make some adjustment either in our budget for the vacation at the end of the year in our personal life or in the team dynamics and who's going to do what, because the thing you're doing that you love actually isn't creating the revenue return on that we need right now. Could you pivot over here and do this thing instead? Um, so last question that we kind of wrap up with on the One Great Question podcast is we're really looking for better questions. I'm in the business, in my company Curiosity, of asking great questions of wonderful leaders like you, but really I'm an 8-year-old on the search for better questions and going, I don't know all of them. There are millions of questions I will never get to ask or know. And so very selfishly, this podcast is me going, I know really smart, interesting, funny people who have other better questions than I've got. So my last question is always, Sam, what do you think is a question that somebody asked you in your life that maybe changed your life? That you're like, oh man, this thing changed the trajectory, and it could have been as a teenager or in your 20s or in the last, I don't know, 12 days. But what's a question that kind of pops to your mind that you're like, this is a great question, and it really did change everything for me?
Yeah, something that hopefully is in the midst of changing everything for the better. So we read books with our leadership team that meets every Monday, right? It's like a book club kind of. That's part of the meeting, is talking about a chapter of a book. We read Brene Brown book, which was awesome, having rumbles, and we definitely, everybody feels closer. The more trust we have, we can get at each other a little bit in the meetings in a healthy way and leave, shaking hands. And so we've read a lot of those books, but right now we're reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's a pretty wild book, and about a gentleman, Ben's his name, who started a couple tech companies in 2001 during the crash and had to go public, and a lot of crazy stories. But one of his questions that he asked his people that we started to ask, it's not like, what can we do better? What are we doing? It's what are we not doing that we should be doing? So
Mm.
it sounds simple, but it's a pretty different way to look at things. What are we not doing that we should be doing, as opposed to what are we doing that we can do better? So that's something that we've been asking ourselves, and that's something that we had cascaded down through all of the leadership meetings and teams with everybody, is what are we not doing that we should be doing that can make some momentum and take some moves. So that's something that recently just popped to mind, of a question that got everybody kind of thinking a little bit.
Man, that's such a good question. When it was asked to you for the first time, was there something that immediately popped to mind, or did you sit with it for a while? Is there something that's rumbling around in your head after hearing it?
Yeah, I think it's something that it helps. That's I've been thinking and contemplating on a little bit. The businesses have their ups and down months, and the education's been down a little bit, as we talked a little bit earlier. And I think it's, what am I not doing? Well, I'm not doing things that I know will make a difference. Like I don't want to have our sales department in-house and have a in-house sales, in-house setters, in-house lead management, just because it's nice to outsource that thing. But I know that if I do that and spend the time to do that, that we will be better. Having people in-house, having the control, the oversight, the brand throughput of everything from initial conversation to call to sign up, if we're talking specifically education. But it helped me, like, all right, we just have to do this. Like, kind of the what you don't want to do is probably what you need to do kind of conversation that you have to have with yourself. And sometimes it just takes a different way of it being asked to
Mm.
actually try to go down that path. So we are going down that path right now. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you put off and it's good enough. And it's like, we need to be better than good enough. And it's really a powerful thing to be able to control that. So a little more tactical, but that's kind of where that's led.
Yeah, I love that. Do you mind if I play with the question a little bit?
Mm.
Because I think I could make it a little bit more 8-year-old and a little bit more fun for you and the team and freedom in general. Um, is we talk a lot about don't should on yourself. Because the idea of like what should we be doing is typically like, oh, I'm doing an immediately negative analysis of I'm falling short, I'm not doing something, and so it's kind of wrapped in shame. And because I'm an 8-year-old, I'm like, okay, well, what would be a fun version of that question? Because it's still very helpful. It's a great question. And so ours would be, what would I try if I knew I couldn't fail? And so it's going, oh, well, would I try an in house sales team knowing it wouldn't? Well, yeah, of course I would, because it would drive numbers. And then I just find a little bit psychologically, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, it motivates me, at least me personally. Maybe it doesn't do that for other people, because some people need a David Goggins to yell at them. That's not my vibe. Um, and some people are like, no, no, but how good could this get? How fun could this get if we imagined it not failing? What could we try? What would we try? And so I love that you guys are looking through that. And obviously, with all things Sam, I'm sitting here with 3 followers on social media. I think 2 of them are ghost accounts from my mom, so I have no knowledge or expertise in that. But I would tell everybody listening that Sam's an incredible follow on all social media platforms. Is there something right now, Sam, if I wanted to engage and go, man, I love what you're doing in the world. Sam's a great dude. I would love to learn from him. What's the best way for people to connect with you in this season?
Yeah, the best way would just probably be on Instagram. I'm still I have a decent following there, but I'm still very involved in the DMs. It's a great place to connect. I like to talk with people. It's a little bit extra. Not everybody does that has a decent sized following, but I like to differentiate that way. And it's a great way for me to talk with people, get ideas for content, and really, again, do that thing where I help people. So I would suggest just, follow me on Instagram if you're not, and just check out my content and, shoot me a message. You will actually get my answer there, and you can clarify something. You can ask something. You can get any further type of education that you need through that. Just start a conversation with me there, and we can take it from there.
And for those of us who are dumb and will forget, what's the handle on IG?
Sam Faster Freedom. So I know it's a little bit silly, or you can just type in Sam Prim. Either one, it'll pop up. But yeah, Sam Faster Freedom or Sam Prim should pop up.
And I will tell everybody, Sam is insanely generous, so much so that it surprised me. And one of the things I love in life is the idea of generosity. And it's interesting. I just was with a buddy the other day, wrote a book called The Power of Generosity. And the first time that I met Sam, we were at a real estate thing that my partner had drugged me to, and he was in the real estate game, and I'm sure Sam and Lucas were like instantly, this guy doesn't know anything about real estate, because it was true. And but afterwards, I was very fascinated by the company and the culture you were building. And we connected via text, because you guys were kind of like our, I don't know, surrogate big brothers that they had attached us to at this mastermind, which was really kind and helpful. But then even after that, I'd messaged you and going like, there's no way that this guy's going to read this DM, because again, I'm looking at millions of followers and all that stuff. And you did, and it was instant, and it was real, and I could tell it was you. And I was like, this is crazy. And so I would encourage anybody listening, Sam's the real deal, and he's probably too generous with his time. I'm sure if I spoke with his wife and kids and teammates, they'd be like, yeah, we'd like him to stop helping everybody so much all the time. But I would highly recommend you connect with Sam, because the generosity is real and the output is real. And this conversation has been super helpful to me, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always good to catch up with you, and then, and get the little twinge of the accent. I always like to hear the accent come out on the R's.
Well, Sam Prim, thanks so much for the time, and we'll catch you soon, man.
I appreciate it.
All right, cheers.